Hey guys, there are a lot of videos out there, how to iron your trousers with lots of professional advice with all those extra tools. But come on, not everyone has all those things. And I'm trying to share some simple tips to help guys dress and look better more effortlessly. I want to make it more approachable and easy for everyone. If you're ironing your trousers, no need for the tailor's ham, nor a sleeve board, nor a clapper. No clips, no magical equipment, just a home iron, an ironing board, and a press cloth. If you don't have a press cloth, a pocket square or repurposed old shirt would work. I'll show you guys how to iron my wool trousers, then I'm going to go on to iron a cotton chino. The main focus on this is to do it properly and quickly without damaging your clothing and creating that nice sharp crease. Now, make sure your iron is on the wool heat setting and the steam is off for this. The hottest setting is for cotton and linen, which can withstand heat, but wool is more delicate and it can burn. If you're not sure which setting to use, usually on the care label, you'll see a little iron with 1 dot, 2 dots, and then on iron you can see that setting as well. For wool trousers, which are more delicate, I'm going to use a press cloth. This is to protect the wool fabric. Do not press a hot iron directly on wool fabric. Alright guys, here we go. Now, let's begin. Before I start, I check my iron. It's on the wool setting and the steam is off. And I have my press cloth, and here are my wool trousers. As you see, they're roughly the width of the board. It's going to make the job easier. If you use a smaller board, it's going to make the job a little bit more difficult. These trousers I've probably worn them about 7 or 8 times since I last ironed them. They're a high twist, so they're actually a little bit easier to take care of than maybe a fine worsted wool. But there's a pre-existing crease, and even on a fine worsted wool, you can see that crease. I lay them flat, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold that top leg out of the way first. And I'm just going to make sure everything is flat. So there's that pre-existing crease, it makes it very easy. But I can also check here. If there's no crease, the seams on the hem of the trousers should match up. And the way to check this is if I just put my finger down here and lift it, I can see it's lined up. Now it could be off by, a little bit, which is fine. I still see it's on the crease here. I'm going to do the back of the leg first. So I have this flat and lined up, and you'll notice like a wool trouser, there's actually stretching and shrinking that happens to give the leg more 3-dimension when you wear it. So I'm going to make sure that this is flat. So I have to pull it a little that way. And then make sure I put that press cloth over it. Now I'll just start from the cuff. And I'm applying a bit of pressure, and when I move up, I'm actually lifting it. I'm not pushing and sliding it along, because if there is any kind of waves in there and you press it along and slide it along, you risk misshaping it or putting unwanted creases in the trouser. So again, when I iron, I put the iron down a lot, readjust. I can move this out of the way. Slide that back up and over here. And I'm doing that back crease. Sometimes I use a little bit of steam, like for example on the back of the leg, behind the knee, sometimes you get little creases. And if you do get little creases and they don't come out with just heat alone, you can just give it one little push of steam. And the point about this is, like, if you use too much steam or water when you're ironing wool, you can shrink it or even misshape the trousers. I'll feel it and make sure it's dry. And it's still a little bit moist, so I'm going to just use the heat of the iron to dry it. And then those creases on the back of the knee should be gone. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the leg and do the front of the trousers. This is just a piece of shirt fabric actually that we cut and use for press cloth here. You can tell I'm putting a bit of pressure on here too as I'm doing this, especially like that front crease at the knee. I'm pressing it down, lifting, moving it down, pressing. Because I really like a very crisp crease. How many times have I said that? Too many times. Now I've done to about a little bit above the knee, and I need to move that press cloth up. And as I'm doing this on the back and the front of the leg, I go to about the crotch point. So you can just check under and make sure it's on that crease. You know, and a lot of times when I iron, and I'll hold that point down so it doesn't move. Like here it's flat, it's not gonna move, but here it could a little bit. So I'll just keep my finger there. And then I'm gonna press there. I'm using a good amount of pressure. Make sure you move your finger out of the way. You don't want to burn yourself. Okay. So that's one leg down. Now what I want to do is I want to just kind of flip it over and do the outside of the leg. So I'm just grabbing the trouser and I'm flipping it over, you know, like a pancake or hamburger patty or whatever. So it's like still in position here, and there's not a lot of creases at the back of the leg anymore. But I'm just going to do the same thing. So, you know, give it a little press on the back of the leg first. Sometimes here in the midsection, there's like a little bit of a crease, or you can tell where you hang the trousers sometimes. So I'm going to just iron that out. And usually I go up to about that. See, I made a little mistake here. If I would have pressed any higher, I would have pressed the crease on the other leg. So make sure when you're ironing your trousers, set that iron down and look underneath to make sure you're not pressing more than just this leg of the trouser. And on the back crease, I go to about the buttocks, right to the middle of the butt. All right, so the back of the leg is done. I'm gonna kind of just readjust this a little bit, and then I'm gonna move that so this is flat. See here, there's sort of 3 dimension to the trousers. So the front is now flat, and I'm gonna iron that front piece. All right, so now I'm gonna do the pleat. So this is probably one of the more challenging parts. You know, set the iron down, but from about mid-thigh up, it's a little tricky, right? So what I'm gonna do is just fold this over a little bit, slide it and move it. Now I have from mid-thigh, or the crotch point, up. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rotate this trouser waistband forward or towards me, so the crease is laying flat. When I do this part, again, I give it just a little bit of steam because I want to make a very crisp crease from the top of the waistband down. This is like one of the tricks, I think, to make a really nice pair of high-waisted trousers or chinos and just have them look really sharp, a slimming and lengthening silhouette. You see, you might be like, oh my gosh, he's holding that iron on the wool trousers for too long, but I have a press cloth and it's on the proper setting, so it's not too long. I kind of take it off and put it back on to, again, evaporate the moisture out of that. And as the moisture evaporates, it sets that crease in. All right. Yeah, that's what I like. Nice sharp crease. So the one leg is done. Now what we need to do is the other leg. So now I've ironed everything except for the last part of the pleat. So what I do is I'm gonna have to readjust, and because this pleat is the opposite side, I have to do it facing away from me to lay it flat. Like that, because I'm right-handed. By the way, for all you lefties, this is probably gonna be the other way around. So here I feel there's something under there, and I'm gonna check what that is. So it's the other trouser, so you have to tuck that under. Because if you press that, you're gonna put a line or a crease or something into it, and then you're gonna have to redo that other leg. Okay, so here it is. I can feel all the way up to the pleat. Everything's flat here. I just need to put that crease in. So I'm gonna give it one bit of steam. Put a little bit of weight on there. I'm putting probably I don't know, 20 pounds of pressure, 10 kilos of pressure on there maybe. So I am putting a bit of weight on it. Now, because I use steam, I'm doing the same thing where I'm using the heat of the iron now to get that moisture out. Ooh, yeah, nice sharp crease. For these trousers, as I look at everything else, one of the main objectives I wanted to do was put that front crease back into these trousers to make them look new again. And I've done that, and the waistband and all of that doesn't really need to be ironed because of that wool high twist. So what's going to make your job a lot easier when it comes to ironing them is if you actually, when you're done wearing them, just, you know, shake them out, get any dust out of them. A lot of people like to use a brush. Put them on a hanger immediately. Is also going to pull little wrinkles in the crotch area or in the knees, behind the knees, out of the trousers. And it's also going to keep that front crease. So it's really important to hang them up. And don't just throw them over, you know, a chair when you get home or throw them on your bed. Good maintenance will make your job a lot easier. As I mentioned, cotton chinos can be machine washed, making them much easier to wear sort of throughout the summer, more carelessly and effortlessly. But you need to iron them because I want to have that nice sharp front crease. So making the job of ironing them easier starts with washing them. Throw them in a garment bag, throw them in the washing machine, you know, cold water, and then immediately when they're done, take them out of the wash. And just to illustrate how I dry them, hang dry them, don't throw them in the dryer. And when you hang dry them, don't, you know, dry them, for example, like this. You can still see the trouser crease when you pull them out of the wash. Then what you do is from the cuffs, you hang them upside down like this. You overlap the cuffs, and then the weight and the gravity is going to lock it in place. And this air will still flow inside and dry them out. And then they're a bit heavy, especially when they're wet. So that gravity is going to actually pull other wrinkles out as it dries. So this is going to make the job much easier when it comes to ironing it. And it's just important, make sure it's on that crease. Because then when we iron it, we're going to be able to see that and have a little bit of a guideline when it comes to pressing the chinos. Now guys, how to iron cotton chinos. The job is a little bit more difficult, but as I mentioned, if you dry them properly by hanging drying them, it makes this job a little bit easier. I can still see a pre-existing crease in it. And the process of ironing these is really going to be very similar to the wool trousers. Since these are dry, I'm going to sort of spritz them first with a little bit of water. This will make the job easier, and if there are little creases or wrinkles here and there, I might give it a little bit more later even. I'm not actually going to use a press cloth for these chinos. If you're new to this, you can still use one because this heat setting is going to be hot. And depending on the chinos, depending on the fabric, if there's any kind of synthetic blend in it, you can like burn it with a hot iron. So double check the care labels to see if it's 100% cotton, it shouldn't be a problem. If you want to take caution, use a press cloth. I've done this a lot of times before, and I know the quality of our cotton chinos, and I know the heat of my iron, so I'm not going to use a press cloth. But proceed, that's your own risk. Please don't blame me if you burn your chinos that have some polyester or synthetic blend in them. Another tip, like here's like a little weird crease, so I'm going to make sure that that has a little bit of moisture in it. I have the steam setting on the iron as well. Sometimes when I do this, I might get everything ready, turn the iron on, and go make a cup of joe. Now, they're a little wet and damp. The iron is on the proper cotton heat setting. And I'm gonna go ahead and start pressing these. Now, it's the same way as ironing a wool trouser. I'm just gonna first check. Those are lined up. The seam is slightly off here, so I kinda Okay, there we go. And it's important, like I said, just take your time, make sure everything's flat. There's no rush here. And work on sections of the trousers first. Okay. I'm just going to flip it over. So I'm kind of pulling the moisture out right now with the hot iron. With this, I'm being very careful that I don't just leave it there. You have to move it around so you don't risk burning or even shining the cotton, because you can. And that's why, you know, you can use the press cloth if you'd like. So here, I fold that up and I'm just readjusting this so I'm facing that pleat downward so I can match this up. So I feel a bunch of stuff under here, so I have to be very careful to pull it off of the bit underneath. Fold that down. And there's like a pocket bag here too. So I'm going to move that out of the way as well. Alright, so there I can feel it. So here's where I stopped the crease before, and I need to go all the way up to here. So it's like really hot and I can feel a little bit of moisture in it still. So don't pull it off right away, just let it kind of set for a second, cool down a little bit before you move on. Okay, so that leg is done, inside and out. So let's do the other one. Okay. I'll check down the front. It looks pretty sharp to me. Now there's still the point of the front crotch and the hips area. So first, just kind of face them down, and from the inside, you can press the crotch area down, the fly area. And then, after that is I button the trousers, and I zip it up. And then I'm going to just put them on the front of the ironing board. And I'm just pressing this section. It's kind of the side of one hip. I'll slide them down and rotate them a little bit so I can get the back of the hip and the waistband. And then you just kind of move. If you need to, you put the iron down, you know, use 2 hands to flatten out the fabric and press it. You also maybe need to move the inside pocket bag out of the way. So I've lifted it out so it's not underneath here, because this area is really wrinkly, so I want to clean that up. Now if your wool trousers are quite wrinkly, you might have to apply the hip ironing or pressing. So as I iron the hips and the waistband, I come around to the front pleat. Sometimes what I'll do is I will press a little bit here on the waistband and on the front of the pleat just to kind of flatten it out here. And when you do this, you know, you have to be careful, because if it's on the edge of the ironing board and it's completely open, that's not good. So what you need to do is fold that pleat over and hold it in place like this, so you have a straight line and it's not opening. And then you can give it a little bit of a press here. So, like if you come here and look, there's a crease under there, but it doesn't go very far. So people will probably never visibly be able to see that. Whereas if I were to press too far down the pleat, then you'll have a long crease underneath, and that's visible, and I don't like that. One other thing I will share though is this little bit of a bonus. Not all of the chinos have like what we call like this inside waistband or skirting. Usually if it's a little bit more high quality or well-made chino, they'll have this. And sometimes you need to iron this because it got lifted up here and there's like little pleats in it. So I'll just quickly on the inside iron those down a little bit. Otherwise it can just be a little bit uncomfortable if it's bunched up. Okay, there you go. A nice, freshly pressed chino. I had people recently ask about denim or trousers without a pleat. So the one thing to know, if there's no pleat in the trousers or if you want to do this to a pair of denim, you follow the same principles. Match up the seams at the cuff, up through the mid-thigh and into the hips. The only difference is when you're ironing jeans without a pleat or chinos without a pleat or even wool trousers, you don't have to iron the front crease all the way up to the waistband. Usually you end a bit past the crotch point to say mid-thigh. There you have it. I hope this was helpful and useful for you guys. If you don't iron your trousers, try to get into the habit. It's actually really nice. It's a way I like to meditate and it looks better. Good luck, guys. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching.